So welcome back to this video, and in today's video we'll be going over 2.2, which is all about completing the square. So what is completing the square? So it is another form of solving a quadratic equation. So there are mainly three ways. So you can use the quadratic formula, you can use completing the square, and then if it's a basic one, you can just try and think of the two numbers which will go inside the bracket. But with completing the square, the way you do it is effectively, it always relies on the x value here, especially the coefficient of x. So in this case, we have 8, okay? And effectively what you want to do is we want to think of how can we write this expression in terms of brackets, okay? So whatever the coefficient of x is, you want to half that value, and then you want to put that into brackets, okay? So in this case, if we did that with this, we would get x plus 4 squared, okay? Now, why do we do that? Because if we were to expand the brackets for this, we would get x squared plus 8x plus 16. So by doing that, we get the x squared plus the 8x, which is what we want. However, also by doing this, we get a 16. We don't want the 16. We just want x squared plus 8x. So what we can do is we can just bring the 16 to the other side. We can get rid of it by minusing 16 from both sides. So if we do that, we get x plus 4 squared minus 16, and that is equal to x squared plus 8x. So that would be completing the square for this question. If we complete the square for x squared plus 8x, we get x plus 4 squared minus 16. But you might be wondering then, why do we do this? What does this mean? Well, effectively, imagine if we had x squared plus x, and imagine that was equal to 0. Okay, so if we had this type of question where it's equal to 0, that means that this x plus 4 squared minus 16 could also be equal to 0. And if we were to work out this question, which I'll do now, we get x plus 4 squared is equal to 16. Then we square root both sides, so we would get a x plus 4 that is equal to a plus or minus 4, which would give us two values for x. X would be a positive 4 minus a 4, which is a 0, and it would be a minus 4 minus a 4, which is 8, okay? And if you want to wonder too, there's another way you could do this. If we were just to factorize the x squared plus 8x, we would get x, then we'd get x plus 8 in the bracket, and if this is equal to 0, again, we would get x is equal to 0, and then x is equal to minus 8. So as you can see, when we complete the square, if we need to solve this quadratic equation by completing the square, we can use completing the square to solve it, and we'll still get the same x values as if you were to factorize or do some other method. There's another method of solving a quadratic equation, okay? And we're going to get into some more examples now. So if we had something like this, x squared minus 3x, then again, we want to look at this value here, actually in this case, also the negative, and we want to half it, okay? So if we do that, therefore we would get a x minus 3 over 2, so that's 1.5, 3 over 2 squared. And then if you want to think about what number you would get out of this, well, we know it's going to be a minus 3 over 2 times a minus 3 over 2. So if you did that, that'll give you 9 over 4, okay, because 3 over 2 times 3 over 2 is 9 over 4, but we don't want the 9 over 4, therefore we minus 9 over 4. Okay, so that will be this one done. And for one like this, we have 2x squared minus 12x. Well, first things first, to do something like this, this only really works when you have x squared by itself. So what we want to do is we want to take a factor of 2 out. So if we take a factor of 2 out, we will get a 2. Then we get x squared minus a 6x, okay? Notice I'm using the square brackets. It's because when we deal with questions like this, we're going to have brackets within brackets. So I like to use the more straight line, kind of square, rectangle looking bracket, and then I'll use my curve bracket as normal. So now at this stage, again, we want to look at this -6, okay? And then we want to use that to complete the square. So if we do that for this question, we get a 2, and then we would get a x minus 3 squared, and then that a -3 times a -3 would give us a 9. So we don't want that 9, so therefore it would be like this, okay? We need to minus the 9, but we're not done just yet because we still have this 2 outside the bracket. So now we can times everything by 2. So we get a 2x minus 3 squared, and then 2 times a -9, that will give us a minus 18. Okay, so for this question, we have x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0. So for this question, I'm going to solve it first, just using the simple method, just by thinking of the two numbers, which could possibly be. And I'm also going to complete the square so you can get more of an idea of how to complete the square for these type of questions. So first thing first, if I think of two numbers which can sum to make 8 and multiply to make 15, then that would be 5 and 3. So we get x plus 5 and then x plus 3, okay? And that's equal to 0, which means that if we was to work this out, we would get x is equal to -5, and then x is equal to -3. Now, what if we wanted to solve this by you completing the square? How would we do that? Well, I will show you now. So, what you want to do, again, is you want to look at this number right here. This is the number you want to look at. This is your baby. Okay, and now what you want to do is you want to put it in the form. So we'd get x plus 4 squared. Remember, we always half that value. And then that will give us a 16, which we don't want. So it will be a -16. But then we also have this 15. So now we need to plus 15, and that is equal to 0. So that if we just work this out, we get x plus 4 squared. And then we get a -16 minus 15, which is a -1, is equal to 0. So therefore we get x plus 4 squared, that is equal to 1. If we square root both sides, we would get a x plus 4 equal to the square root of 1. Remember, in this case, it's a plus or -1. Remember, always a plus or minus. And then once you're at this stage, well, therefore, to get x, it will be either 1 minus 4. So 1 minus 4 would give us x as -3. And then it would be a -1 minus a 4, which would also give us the -5. So as you can see, we worked out both ways. Both ways would give us the exact same answer. So in your exam or whatever, if you have a question like this, if it doesn't specify which method you have to use, feel free to use either method, or even still, most likely you'll use a calculator anyway if it doesn't specify. But just to briefly let you know, this is how you would complete the square, and you get the same answer as if you were to solve it another method. So for this question, we have 5x squared minus 15x plus 3, and we need to complete the square for this expression. We need to write it in the form of p and then in brackets x plus q squared plus r, where p, q, and r are constants, okay? So to work this one out, again, what we need to do is we need to get rid of that 5, because to do it, we need the x squared by itself. So to do that, we would write a 5 here, open bracket, x squared, minus a 3x, okay? And then that would be a plus 3 over 5, okay? So in this case, I would say leave it as a fraction. It's always better. I find it's easier to work out as a fraction. But feel free, if you want to do decimals, put it in a decimal form. So now at this stage, now we can complete the square. So if remember, it would be on this -3. That's what we're going to half. So if we do that, therefore we get a 5. We get x minus 3 over 2 squared. Then 3 over 2 times 3 over 2, that would be 9 over 4. So therefore it's a minus 9 over 4. And then we also have that plus 3 over 5. So now if we simplify this down a bit, we get a 5 x minus 3 over 2 squared minus 9 over 4 plus 3 over 5. So to do this one, what I would do is I would try and rewrite the denominator as the same. So in this case, let's write it over 20. So we'd get a minus 45 over 20 plus a 12 over 20. Okay. And then if I just scroll up, then we have a 5 x minus 3 over 2 squared, and that would give us a minus 33 over 20. Okay, and now we're at this stage. Now we can just put everything together. So therefore we would get a 5 x minus 3 over 2. We'll do that 2 again. Didn't like that 2. Squared, and then we get a minus 5 times 33 over 20. So feel free to use your calculator if you want. I cannot be bothered to work this one out. We would get a, so if we do 33 over 20 and we do the times by 5, simplified down, we will get a 33 over 4. Now that we've worked this out, we do have some constants. In this case, we would have P as 5. We would have Q as minus 3 over 2. And we would have R as minus 33 over 4. Okay, so our last question of the day will be this one here. We have x squared minus 14x plus 1 is equal to 0. And we need to work out what x is, work out the solutions by completing the square. And for this question, this is an exam style question, and we need to give our answer in the form of r plus s root 3, okay, where r and s, they are both constants which we need to find. So to do this question, again, if we complete the square, we want to look at this number here. So it's all of this minus 14, okay, that is what we want to look at. So if we start off with completing the square for this, we would get a x minus a 7 all squared. 7 times 7 minus 7 times minus 7 is a 49. We don't want a 49, so we would minus 49, and then we plus 1, which gives us 0. And then x minus 7 squared, that would give us a minus 48 is equal to 0. Then we bring that 48 to the other side. So we get x minus 7 all squared is equal to 48. Now we can square root both sides. If we square root both sides, we get x minus 7 is equal to the square root of 48. Okay, so now we're at this stage with x minus 7 is equal to the square root of 48. And in this case, usually we have had square numbers in the past, so we can easily just simplify it down. In this case, we don't have a square number. So what we can do is we can put it in third form, okay? So in this case, what we have is we will have x minus 7. Remember that when we are dealing with square roots, always going to be a plus and minus. So in this case, we'll have a plus or minus root 16 times by root 3. Now, why those two values? Because if you think about 48, think of any square number factors it has. 16 is a square number factor it has, and you times that by 3, that gives you 48. So we can split up the square root of 48 into root 16 times root 3. And if we simplify this down, therefore we get x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus 4 root 3, okay? And then we just bring that 7 over to the other side, and therefore we are left with 7 plus or minus 4. Sorry, my iPad is a bit weird sometimes. Yep, like now. Okay, and that will give us x is equal to 7 plus or minus 4 root 3. So in this case, r would be 7. S would be 4. Okay, we can leave your answer like that. 7 plus or minus 4 root 3. And that is where we'll end this lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it. In our next lesson, we'll be going over 2.3, which is all about functions. So I look forward to seeing you on that video. But yeah, that will be this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.